Welcome to the podcast. Now that I'm engaged, how do I get married? I'm your host, Kevin Dennis.
And I'm August Yocher, co-host and brand manager at Fantasy Sound Event Services.
In addition to leading the charge at Wedding IQ, I also run Fantasy Sound Event Services, a lighting and entertainment company based in Livermore, California, that I founded over 35 years ago.
Each week on this podcast, we'll explore a new corner of wedding planning so you can prepare for your I-dos without the stress.
From budgeting to booking vendors to the day of drama.
Let's talk smart wedding planning.
All right, folks, welcome to another episode of Now That I'm Engaged, How Do I Get Married? And we have Jordan Roepke here with us, and from Jordan Roepke Photography. And he's going to be talking about pay for what you value, why your wedding day budgeting may be working against you. So I'm really excited to dive into this topic. But before we do, Jordan, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how we got you here today?
Yeah, absolutely. You found me on the side of the road. You picked me up.
Oh, my.
And it was very nice of you.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
We're there for you.
I mean, I was cold. I was out there for a long time. So, my name is Jordan Roepke. I am a wedding and portrait photographer based in Nashville, serving couples all over the United States. Actually, last year we had the privilege of photographing weddings in, I believe, 12 states.
Oh, wow.
From
Awesome.
anywhere from anywhere from California. We have photographed in Yosemite National Park. We did we work in Seattle, San Francisco, LA, Chicago, Milwaukee, Savannah, and a bunch of other places in between, obviously besides just the Nashville area. A lot of Atlanta weddings too. So anywhere in the US pretty much. I run the business with my lovely wife Leslie.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah.
I love, and when you said Yosemite, I'm like, that's probably a photographer's dream, being in Yosemite, because it's
Yeah. It was incredible. And the couple that we had, they were actually from Chicago and they were eloping to Yosemite. And we actually spent it was the longest wedding day I've ever had. It was 23 hours.
Oh, wow. That's long.
Yeah. So we woke up at about midnight to get to Yosemite from our hotel. And then we did a sunrise ceremony at Taft Point, which is beautiful. And then we spent the entire rest of the day past sunset in Yosemite National Park, just taking photos all over, just driving around. And it was an incredibly lovely couple, Chad and Lily. We're still friends.
Yeah.
I
would hope so after that long.
Their daughter. Yeah. And, they kind of just hopped in the rental car and we just drove them around and chatted and had lunch and had dinner and all that good stuff. And we made it back to the hotel at 11 p.m. that night.
Wow.
So that was a 23-hour day. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a long
Ready
day.
to crash, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. There was a couple of times on the way home I was like, oh, okay. Yeah. But we made it. So it was good.
All right. So when couples first start budgeting for their wedding day, what do you think they get wrong most often?
Yeah, so I think a lot of the conventional wisdom is, if you're a couple who's just gotten married, chances are you've never been married before. This is one of those things where there's really no reason why you should have a good understanding of what things cost for a wedding. And, according to the Googles, I think the average price of a wedding in 2026 is about $45,000 in the United States. Of course, you can have whatever kind of wedding you want and whatever kind of budget you want. So if you're, a Kardashian, or you're playing in the NFL, or you're Selena Gomez, I'm sure you're paying millions and millions and millions, tens of millions of dollars for your wedding day.
Or Taylor Swift. Can you imagine what that wedding's going to cost?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But I think that, for most people, you're not thinking about, what flowers cost. How much could flowers possibly cost? I see them on sale at Costco all the time.
Yeah.
And so if you show up to a vendor meeting, or if you inquire with somebody and you get a little bit of sticker shock, that's totally normal, because for most people, you're just not in the industry. But a lot of times you're turning to sites like The Knot or Wedding Wire or blog posts or things like that. And you're going to see, you should put this percentage of your budget towards this. I think The Knot is something like 40 or 50% towards the venue, and then, 10% towards photography, and a certain percentage towards food, and a certain percentage towards your cake, and a certain percentage towards this. And it's okay blanket advice, but what if you don't care about those things. You
Yeah.
know, what if you're
Mhm.
getting married at Yosemite National Park, and you have a $20,000 wedding budget? I think a
Mhm.
wedding permit in Yosemite is like $500. Like, it's
Yeah.
not very
Yeah.
much to get married in a
Yeah.
national park. So it just does. It's sort of the one size fits none approach.
I'm glad you said that because that's what I think, because guest counts and, location and so much goes into this. And so was it one size fits none?
Yeah,
That's really good. That's a really good quote.
Well, and
yeah,
I also
yeah,
like
and
that, more vendors are kind of talking about kind of breaking the mold a little bit because I feel like a lot of people come in feeling that they have to put themselves in a certain box or follow these rules. And this is a buzzword we use a lot on this podcast, but just accepting more non traditional approaches to weddings and really doing what you value.
yeah, yeah, and it applies to vendors too, right? And I will say, as a wedding and a portrait photographer, get into photography, when you become a photographer, a lot of the beginning part of your career is sort of figuring out, what do I like doing, what do I not like doing, what do I never want to do again.
Yeah.
um, and so for me, I love portraits, but I don't necessarily love photographing families. I love
Mm.
working with
Mm,
individuals and couples. And so as a wedding photographer, of course, family photography, group photography is a part of that. And, I really believe that wedding photography is one of those genres of photography where you have to be a great real estate photographer if you're going to photograph interiors of venues and things like
mm,
that. You have to be a great product photographer if you're going to photograph details. You have to be a great photojournalist to capture the candid moments. You have to be a great portrait photographer. And all of those are sort of individual skills that not only do you have to apply well on a wedding day, but you also have to cultivate under time pressure.
Mhm.
Because that
right.
that portrait session that usually you would take 2 hours to photograph, now you have 10 minutes. So that all that is to say that if you're a couple who is from my perspective, let's say you value the portraits. Um, that's going to be a different set of wedding photographers that you're looking at than somebody who's like, I don't want you to interact with me at all on my wedding day. I want you to stand in the corner. I want you to capture
Mhm.
all candids, doing
Mm,
like a documentary style. And that's another thing that I think is difficult for couples, because there's a lot of buzzwords going around. I'm a fine art photographer. I describe myself as a fine art photographer. I'm a documentary photographer. I'm a editorial wedding
I hear
photographer. What
editorial
does
a lot. Yeah.
what does that even mean? Like, are your
People
wedding
ask me, and I'm
photos
like,
going to?
don't know.
Yeah, yeah, and it's ideally it's a photo to accompany text.
Mm.
Like, are you gonna have a lot of articles written about your wedding day? Probably not. I mean, maybe
Mhm.
if you're Taylor Swift or Selena
Yeah, I
Gomez.
was gonna say.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, but that's probably not your primary concern. Is, what is this going to look like next to a paragraph? Your primary concern is having a great day, is being married to the person that you love the most in the world, is celebrating with the people who are the closest to you. Um, and I think a lot of that can kind of get lost when you're looking at buzzwords of this, that, or the other thing.
I love it.
Okay, so I guess kind of circling back to budgeting, how can couples, or I guess, what do you think people mean when they say like pay for what you value? And how is that different from what most couples are doing when they're approaching budgeting?
Yeah, so I think that most couples, if you're a young couple who has never been married before, probably um, your template for
Mm.
what your wedding day is going to look like is, maybe you've had friends that have gotten married, maybe you have relatives that have
Mhm.
gotten married, maybe your older brother or older sister got married when you were younger. For me, I'm 14 years younger than my closest sibling, so I was
Wow.
like 5, 6, 7 when they got married. Maybe even
Mm.
younger. I think I was like 3 when my sister Ariane got married. Um, so I don't necessarily have a big frame of reference as an adult for what a wedding should look like. Of course, now I do, because I've been in the industry for a
Yes.
number of years. But um, when you're going into those things, you're like, okay, well, we have to have this because that's what weddings have, right? We have to do a bouquet toss. We have to do a garter toss. My cousin Steve did a shoe game at his wedding, so we should probably do that, or whatever. We have to have a cake. We have to have bridesmaids and groomsmen. We have to have this. And if you're kind of just checking off a list based on the things that you have seen other people do, it's going to be very difficult to really express yourself and your relationship with your
Yeah.
partner authentically in that environment. And I feel like a lot of times, couples now are far more sophisticated than they've ever been before because we have social media, we have
Mhm.
Pinterest, and we have Vogue, and we have Martha Stewart weddings, and we have all of these publications. Southern Bride magazine is a huge one down here in Nashville, that are showing you, here's all the things that you could have, but typically they don't have a price tag attached to them. So
Mhm.
if you're looking at this beautiful yacht wedding, on the off the Atlantic coast in this North Carolina marina. Oh my God, I really want that. Great. You have a budget of $12,000 and that is a $5 million wedding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's figure out what about that you really like and and deal with that.
Hmm.
And that's not to say that you can't have a marina wedding on a budget.
Mhm.
I photographed a beautiful wedding up in Wisconsin a few years ago where they actually had their reception before the wedding.
Mm. I
They
love
had it the
that.
night
I've done a
before.
few of those, and it's fun. It actually is fun.
Yeah, it's great, right? You don't have to worry about like being exhausted from an entire wedding day. You just get to party.
Yeah.
And then the next day you got to wake up and kind of do the official bit. But that's a great example of do what you value, right? Like being awake and aware for the party, having a full day of just beautiful photographs around Milwaukee, which that's where I'm from originally. And it's a really beautiful city if you have a chance to go.
I was just
Um,
there last summer.
Yeah, both of
yeah,
us were there.
yeah,
What was it? September. We had the cheese
No,
curds. They were great.
we
yes.
we were there in July.
Oh, July. Okay.
July.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this wedding was a 4th of July wedding, and they had their ceremony at this little kind of a bunkhouse or a dock house at the McKinley Park Marina,
Hmm.
which is absolutely beautiful. And so they just rented the dock house. I think it was relatively cheap, and they had it for an hour or two, and they had a little DIY not a reception because they had the reception the night before, but they had like cake and a little bit of snacks and stuff like that. But you can absolutely do that on the budget, but don't try to compare that to your New England yacht club
Yeah.
weddings
Yeah.
necessarily. And so that's kind of what I say when we're talking about value. Um, you know, you can get married at a marina without necessarily having your entire wedding at a marina and
Yeah.
paying
Right.
that fee or having those sorts of things. So, don't get sucked into this idea of like I have to have what Selena Gomez had or I have to have
Yeah.
what Taylor Swift's going to have because you're probably not going to get that.
No.
Yeah. No. Yeah, because you got to remember the budgets are way, way
Mhm.
different. So
I really like how you said you're looking at this $5 million wedding. Like, let's identify the pieces that you actually like because that would be so much easier budgeting wise to incorporate those small pieces that at the end of the day you're going to look back on and really love than just the entire picture. And it's not really you, right? Like you're just copying it, you're replicating it. It's not really what you and your partner represent as a couple.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that there's something to be said too about getting close enough. Kind
Yeah.
of this like horseshoes and hand grenades approach to wedding planning because, you might see a cake that was, let's say there's a high society wedding in New York, and you love that vibe, you love that kind of architectural
mhm.
urban vibe, and they have this beautiful cake that's like a 5-layer cake, and the flowers are cascading down the side and all of that stuff. Well, they hired a, $150,000 florist, and they had a, ace of cakes guy bake the cake, and they had their planner who's a $1 million wedding planner put that all together. And that cake altogether might have cost them, $200,000 to have exactly what they wanted there. but you can go to Publix and get a pretty good cake, and you
Yeah.
can get some cheaper flowers and cascade them down the side, and it can still look nice. So you have to sort of like, am I willing to accept 90% of this? Am I willing to accept 80% of this? Do I really care that much about it at all?
Yeah.
For my wife and I, when we got married, actually the first thing we decided on was the cake, because we're a bunch of weirdos and we really like cake,
Yeah.
and we had a little bit of a quasi themed wedding, and so the very first thing we decided on before we decided, we already knew who our photographer was going to be because we're in the industry and we know that. We knew who was going to do the hair and makeup because we know
Yeah.
these people. They're our friends. But we decided that before we knew what our venue was, before we knew anything like that, we decided that we wanted to have a purple tentacle cake that bled when you cut it.
Yeah. I love
Uh,
it.
and that's what we did. And it just so happened that my wife's best friend used to be a professional baker. And so she
Oh.
baked us our cake as a wedding gift. And it was absolutely beautiful. It was not the first thing that I had in my head when
Yeah.
I envisioned this purple tentacle cake, but it was absolutely beautiful. And it was absolutely delicious. And it did, in fact, bleed when you cut it.
Oh, that's
Uh,
amazing.
Good. Yeah.
so it checked all the boxes. And had we hired somebody to make that cake, it probably would have been a $4,000 or $5,000 cake.
Yeah.
Because, if I come to you as a professional baker and say, hey, I want a purple tentacle cake that bleeds when you cut it, you're going to have ideas and you're going to get creative and it's going to be expensive. But if you're willing to sort of say, this is the general roadmap of what I want, and you're happy with what you get, and it was amazing, and I'm so glad that we got what we got, then you're gonna save some money doing that. Or if you have a friend who happens to be a professional baker,
There you
Yeah.
go. Yep.
you know.
You got to take advantage when you can. So,
Mhm.
all right, Jordan. So, where do you see couples under investing and wish they like later hadn't?
I mean, I'm obviously going to be biased, right? But it's always going to be in the photography, for me, because I would say photography and DJ are probably the two places where you're going to see couples mostly under investing. Um, and I think there's a few reasons for that. But I would say the reason that I'm the most biased about those is, number one, your photography and your videography, if that's something that you're interested in, are going to be the two things that you get to keep. Those are the things that you get to look back on forever. And I think a lot of people have this idea that if I have a really beautiful, expensive venue, that it's just going to look beautiful and expensive, as opposed to, if I hire someone who knows what they're doing and is able to, I don't want to say hold my hand, right? Like, as a photographer, I'm not there to hold my couple's hand, but I am there to direct and to guide and to really focus on the things that matter to my couples. Then I can make a beautiful photograph anywhere. Some of my favorite photographs I've taken have been next to dumpsters,
Yeah.
and you would
Yeah.
never know looking at it because the light is great and there's a little bit of interesting shadow. And you're behind a red robin, next to a
Yeah.
dumpster, but who's going to know? And it's a beautiful photograph. And I feel like a lot of times when you think about your photographer or your DJ, what you're thinking is, well, I just need somebody to take a couple of pictures and I just need somebody to play a little bit of music. Um, and realistically, that is not what we do. My
Yeah.
opinion is that as a photographer, the least important thing that I do on your wedding day is take your photo,
Yeah.
because you need to have time to relax. You need to have time to have a glass of wine, to have a glass of water, to eat a sandwich. You need to have time to have your hair and makeup done without somebody being in your face the whole time. And if that hair and makeup takes longer, you need to be able to trust that the person that is capturing those photos can say, hey, you know what? I'm going to go over to the guys real quick. I'm going to get their stuff knocked out and just sort of rearrange the day in a way that makes sense and is a practical flow. And the same thing with DJs. There's a really good chance that your guests are not going to remember what they ate at cocktail hour. There's a really good chance that unless it is the best or the worst meal that they have ever had,
Yeah.
that they're not going to remember what you've served for dinner. But what they will remember is how banging that party is.
Mm-hmm.
And they will remember that it wasn't awkward because it took 5 minutes to round up the bridesmaids for the bouquet toss. Or they're going to remember that the party was bumping and everything flowed really well and they knew what was going to happen.
Mm.
And a really great DJ is going to keep that flowing. And so it's not just about, here's a playlist that I made on Spotify and I'm going to plug it into a speaker. And there's sort of that, going back to that idea of couples being very sophisticated, but not necessarily having the context of these things, because the best DJs that I work with, if they kick a song off and anybody leaves the dance floor, whoop, new song.
Yep.
That's going to change. And they're going to pump up the crowd. They're going to hype people up. They're going to engage the audience, engage your guests. And that's what people are going to remember about your wedding.
Love
Yeah,
it.
I always think about that one like Maya Angelou quote. People will forget like what you said and what you did, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. And I feel like it's the
Mhm.
same for weddings. Like you said, taking the photos is the least important part, but like taking care of them as a couple and addressing their needs and guiding them through the day is really what is going to stand out to them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, at the end of the day, you're sort of paying for confidence, really, more than
Mhm.
anything else. And you can hire a photographer for, don't hire a photographer for $500, but you could if you wanted to.
Off of Craigslist.
Um, yeah, I mean, really anything can be as expensive or as cheap as you want, right? Like if you have an uncle with a camera or a friend from church, yeah, you can get free photography. Everybody in the world walks around with a great camera in their pocket all the time.
Mhm.
And I will tell couples, if somebody comes to me and they're like, hey, we have about $1,000, $1,500 for our wedding photography. And I tell people, first of all, I don't recommend anybody hires a photographer or a videographer who's charging less than $3,500.
Yeah.
It's just risky
Yeah.
to do that. And there's a whole lot of mathematical reasons why that don't really matter to people, right? You should never have to worry. If you like somebody's work, you should be able to have confidence that they're going to show up and they're going to do the job and they're going to do a great job and all those things. But sadly, that's not the world that we live in. And so if somebody comes to me and says, hey, I have about $1,500 to spend on photography, can you work with that budget? What I always tell them is, here's my advice for you. Because if you have $1,500 to spend on your photography, it doesn't sound like photography is really that important for you. And that's
Yeah.
not demeaning anyone. Everyone has a budget, right? It's very important. But it doesn't sound like if you only have $1,500 to invest, that photography or videography or whatever it is that important for you. So what I would recommend that you do is I would recommend that you put up signs all over your wedding that says, we love you. We would love to see our wedding day through your eyes. Please take all the photos in the world with your phones. And here's a QR code, here's a Dropbox link, here's a hashtag, here's any of that stuff. And just share those photos with us at the end of the day. And take that $1,500 and invest in something that you do value. Have a longer honeymoon, have a
Mhm.
better cake, feed more people, have a midnight snack. I tell everybody, if your wedding budget is $11,000 and you want to wear a $10,000 dress, do it. Figure the rest of it out,
Yeah.
Yep.
But if you hire a $1,500 photographer, you may get good photos. You may get great stuff, but there is a chance that you're going to get bad photos
There's a good
or
chance.
you're going to be unhappy. There's a good chance you're going to be unhappy. If you have
Mhm.
all of your guests take photos all day, you absolutely will get bad photos, but you might get some pretty great ones too.
Mhm.
So that's just a better use of time. I had a young lady inquire with me, and she had a very low budget for photography, but she was saying, yeah, one of the things I thought to save money was I was going to get a bunch of disposable cameras and put them on all the
Mm.
tables. And I looked on Amazon and to see she was planning on having 150 guests. And I looked on Amazon to see what that would cost. It would be $3,500 worth of disposable cameras to give
They're
every
not
guest
cheap.
24 photos. And that's not $10 per camera for developing, $10 to
Yeah.
$20 per camera for developing. So that's
Mhm.
another $1,500 to $3,000. And then you're going to get underexposed, badly framed photos of people's feet. Kids are going to grab them off the table and just, eyeball,
No flash
um,
on,
no flash or terrible flash, or it doesn't
Yeah.
matter anyway. You're just not going to get a lot of good stuff. And I have a really good friend of mine who, when we first started doing weddings, he was like, we have boxes in our attic of disposable cameras that we had at our wedding that we never had them developed.
Oh my gosh.
Um,
Wow.
and like you're gonna spend $3,500 for 150 disposable cameras, uh, $1,500 to another $3,000 of developing costs. So you're gonna spend $6,500 on
Yeah.
bad photos.
Yeah, those things don't
This,
take good quality stuff. Yeah.
no, and if you want it retro, like I see a lot of people using like the Instax cameras at their wedding day.
Yeah.
Um, you know, but if you're willing to pay $6,500 for bad or no photos, just pay me.
Yeah.
No, for
Get
real.
good stuff.
Do it for you. Yeah, like, or save that money and invest in, like I said, invest in what you value. Get something else. There's always something else you can do.
Yeah. It's funny when you were talking about use the phone. I have photographer friends you'll see me taking a photo at the wedding, and they'll take my phone and then like do whatever you guys do to
The
it. And I'm like,
lighting, yeah.
oh yeah. And I'm like, I never even knew it could do that. It's pretty amazing what they can do once you really, really know how to use them, unlike how we just hit a button. So
yeah, and that's the thing about phone cameras, right? Is they're pretty much designed to be idiot proof, right?
Yeah,
They're designed to be, my kid is running down the beach and he looks really cute, and I'm just gonna whip my phone out and pop a photo, and it's gonna look fine.
Yeah, it really is.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
No. All right, Jordan, as a photographer, how do you see the budget decisions directly impact the final like images or overall experience at a wedding?
I mean, I would say that it's a little bit of a double-edged sword when it comes to investing or not investing, because like I said, as much as I feel like couples are very sophisticated, a lot of people just really don't have an in-depth idea of what goes into it. And not only that, like we live in a cell phone camera world, right? Like TikTok is cell phone cameras. Like what you are seeing 99% of the time is camera phone stuff, unless you're a photography nerd like me, in which case you follow all of these super high-end photographers and their Instagram feeds look incredible, right? But most people have become so accustomed to bad photography that it's hard for them to really kind of see a good photograph. And for any couples that are listening, I'm not talking down to you. Like it's just the way that the world is. I'm sure you have impeccable taste, everyone who is listening to this podcast.
Disclaimer,
but,
yes.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. You're listening to this podcast. Of course you have impeccable taste. But one of the things that I do as a photographer to try to make myself stand out is that I always try to produce an image that would be impossible to produce with a phone.
I love that.
So with, probably 90% of what I do is just like anybody else would do, your documentary style photography, your candid moments, natural light in the moment, all of those sorts of things. But if I can create an interesting piece of art, like you might see behind me on the thing that I have behind me there. If I can use my expertise to create something where, Aunt Sally's standing over my shoulder, actually, I had a wedding a few months ago where one of the bridesmaids was the designated content creator for the day. And so she was standing behind me, which is where I prefer other people to be if they're taking photos, just so that you don't get in my shot. Yeah, you can absolutely shoot whatever you want. Just stand right over my shoulder, follow me around. You're all good.
Yeah.
And she was shooting her photos, and she could see the back of my screen on my camera. And she took a photo, and I took a photo, and she took a photo, and I took a photo, and she took a photo, and I took a photo, and she put her phone away, and she was like, "You got it. Like this is I'm not getting what you're getting for whatever reason."
Yeah.
And that is the sort of experience that you're sort of missing out on if you just go for the budget option. If you book those people who are important to you, late in your buying
Yeah.
decision. That's another thing too, is like, if you are trying to book a venue, if you're trying to book a florist, if you're trying to book a photographer, if you're trying to book, someone who is really, really great at their craft, you got to book them 12 to 18 months in advance.
Yeah.
And since COVID, what I will say is I have been getting inquiries, like the two inquiries that I get the most are I'm getting married in 6 weeks and I'm getting married in 3 years.
Yeah.
Yep.
And not a lot in between. And so I understand where you go, oh man, we're getting married in 6 weeks and we still haven't booked a photographer. Oh my God. But the problem is now you're scraping the bottom of the barrel, man. Like you have to worry about availability and you have to worry about budget because you've already spent your budget. And if I'm the first person that you talk to 3 years out and I can educate you a little bit and we can have a conversation about what's important for you, and you decide that I'm the guy that you want to work with, and I tell you, hey, it's going to be $8,500 for us to photograph your wedding. Now you can plan around me,
Yeah.
if you're coming to me, it's Tuesday and you're getting married on Friday and your pockets are turned out and your Affirm card is jacked up and your credits maxed out and oh my God, I love your work, you're incredible, I can't imagine working with anyone else, can you do it for $300? It's like you might have to start imagining working with somebody else.
Yeah.
And I hate to do that because I love working with my couples and the people that I connect with, and it's not a budget and a price thing for me, it's just about what makes sense. And it's hard, when you're doing this for a living and when you're in the industry and you're used to these sort of numbers, and then you talk to somebody who's just coming in basically off the street saying, oh my God, I just got this ring yesterday, isn't it beautiful? What do things cost? And it can be daunting.
Well, and costs continue to rise.
Oh
and
yeah.
that's
And that's another thing too, is for some reason there seems to be this reverse effect in the wedding industry. I don't know if you guys have seen that, but the higher prices come for everything else, the less people want to pay for photography. And especially with the resurgence of like film photography and that being sort of an important thing. And I understand kind of why that's coming back, because with the rise of like AI and a lot of the things like that, you want things to feel real and you want things to feel authentic and maybe a little less perfect because AI is too perfect. Film is expensive.
It really is.
It's
So
one of my
if you're-
hobbies I do on the side, and it's not a cheap one for sure.
No, I mean,
So,
$20-$30 a roll.
mhm.
God,
For
it used to be
professional
like
grade
what,
film.
$4 or $5 back in the day, I feel like.
Yeah. I mean, if that,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and then the I mean, I could go off on a whole tirade about, why film costs what it does and all
Yeah,
that stuff.
that
But
could be another episode.
It was a class I took in freshman year of high school. We would in photography, and we actually had we would develop it and print, do the whole thing, and with all the chemicals and it was crazy back in the day.
And now it's just it's not just the time anymore. It's also the cost. When something is 50 cents and it takes you 3 hours to do, that's one thing, versus when something is $30 and it takes you 3 hours to do. That's a whole nother calculus,
Yeah. Love it.
Well, and I would say, Kevin, I feel like in our, neck of the woods, I feel like we've had a few photographers who have kind of shared with us like their struggles with the prices rising and this like kind of new wave of couples coming in. Like photographers and florists, I feel is where it's getting hit hard.
Well, and the photographers in our market, their market, all of a sudden, because we're in the Bay Area, so it's saturated right now. So it just, and so that's where some of the real ones, the guys that have been around for a long time are really having to work hard to get the numbers that they used to have for their wedding.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And we will be talking about that on the next podcast.
Yes. Hop on over to Mind Your Wedding Business.
So.
And I think that it is important to understand, like, there's a lot of moving parts when it comes to things like photography and florals is a great example. Because not only is it expensive, most flowers are imported. And if it's not seasonal in the United States, but it is seasonal somewhere else, like you're paying import fees and tariffs are a thing.
Yeah.
And you have to have somebody who is able to order those flowers, who is able to front the money for those flowers, who's able to store those flowers over an appropriate period of time. And so if you want real flowers, that's going to cost you money. And there
Yep.
are some
Mhm.
really great fake flowers, and maybe everything is fake but your bridal bouquet. You know,
Yeah.
maybe those are the compromises that you make.
Yeah, fake flowers have come along. Like the other day, I did a wedding and I had no idea they were fake, and I was just like
Mhm.
shocked when I found because I watched the florist at the end of the night like take them and put them back in a truck, and I was like, I'm like, those weren't real. Like, but
Yeah.
Mhm.
like they've come such a long way from what they used to be.
Yeah, 100%.
So, all right, Jordan, what's the hard truth about wedding budgets that couples don't want to hear?
You get what you pay for, man.
Mhm.
Like
Oh,
that is the hard truth, you know, and it is easier than ever before for somebody to pick up a camera and take a great photo.
mm-hmm,
It is contradicting what I have just said. It is cheaper than ever before for somebody to pick up a camera and take a great photo. That does not make that person a great photographer.
mm-hmm,
Um, and one thing that I tell all my couples, you know, when we have a Zoom consult is I have photographed about 150, 160 weddings at this point in my
mm-hmm,
career. Um, my website, if you go to my website and I have 150 incredible photos, I only need to take one good photo a wedding.
mm-hmm.
Now, how mad would you be if you got your wedding photos back and there were 1,200 terrible photos and
Yeah.
one really good one? Um, but that's all I need to have a great looking website. That's all
Yeah.
I need to have an
Mhm.
incredible Instagram feed is just to
Yeah.
get lucky 1 out of 5,000 times. You
Which
know,
would probably
and
happen.
Which the odds are in your favor, I
yeah,
feel like.
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, with camera technology right now, I could probably close my eyes and just around
Yeah.
a room and end up with something.
Mhm.
Um, and you know, all it takes is Selena Gomez to post kind of a weird, blurry, badly cropped photo from her wedding, and then all of a sudden, really bad photographers are really expensive.
Yeah.
You know, no offense to my blurry photographers out there,
Mhm.
but I think it's so hard to be inundated with what we see online. You know,
Mhm.
you have this idea of exposure versus information, right? You're
Mhm.
exposed to all of this content 24 hours a day, especially with the algorithms. Like you change your relationship status to engaged on Facebook, it's like
Bam.
just this torrent of
Ads.
everything. Because yeah, I mean everything. Because Facebook is just like, oh, we know what you want to see right now,
Mhm.
and you're just being inundated with this stuff, and you're exposed, but you're not being given any information about that at all.
No.
It's just content. It is not informative in any way, shape, or form. So when you're looking at the Marina wedding or the Selena Gomez wedding or something in Vogue or something, and you know you're following these high-end wedding planners just to get some inspiration for what you want, or you're following high-end photographers, your Villas and Villas and all that stuff. I actually don't know how you pronounce his last name. I've only seen
I
it
think it's
written.
Via.
Jose Villa, Vanessa Joy, whoever, you know, whoever your photographer of choice is, you're following them and you see all these beautiful photos. You don't realize that he charges $50,000-$60,000 a wedding.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And you want to try to find somebody who's going to do that for $1,700. And like you can get close. Like I said, right? Are you okay with that being 60%,
90.
70%,
Yeah.
80%, 90% of the way there? But you know, what you don't understand with that last 10% um, is that it's not necessarily the photography that you're paying for.
Mm.
It's the security, it's the experience, it's the
Mhm.
um I'm a Mac guy, as I'm sure a lot of people are. And I will tell you, when you get that new laptop and you have the whole like boom experience of opening up that box, and it's like so precisely engineered. And then I bought my wife a new laptop. It was her first Mac, and she opened it in the car, and she opened it up and it went boom, and she like slammed it shut, and she was like, what just happened? Because she's used to like, the battery's dead, and like you gotta charge it for 3 hours before it works. But like, that's the experience, right? Like, you open up the box and it works and it's beautiful. And that's what you really are paying for when you hire professionals. You're paying for something that just works. And if you're okay with the DIY thing, you can absolutely save money. But I promise you, for every dollar that you spend on any professional that you choose to purchase or choose to hire, you're going to save at least $5 worth of stress.
And time,
Yeah, all of the above.
And we're Apple fiends here, or at least I'm an Apple fiend. I have
I think we all are.
Yeah.
He's on another level, though.
Yeah. I think if you're in a creative environment, if you do something that is media related, if you do something that is creative, and you need something that will always work, it's kind of the only option.
It really is. Yeah. Anyway, I get excited. It's like I'm an NFL fan. I love the Super Bowl, but it's like my Super Bowl anytime they do a launch, and I literally block myself off in the calendar, have it going on the TV in my office. I'm ready to see what I'm going to buy next. So anyway,
don't schedule Kevin for anything at that time. So
I'm
funny.
a nerd.
Yeah.
That's one of my nerded out things. So anyway,
same, absolutely.
All right, Jordan, we're going to wrap up here. We've been going for a while, but how can folks get a hold of you, get in contact with you?
Absolutely. On all of the socials, I am at Jordan Roepke Photography, JordanRoepke Photography. And you can also find me at www.jordanroepkephotography.com.
All right. Love it. And Jordan, we will have all your information in the show notes, and we'll be blasting it out to everyone as well. So we'll get you out there.
Perfect. All right.
Well,
somebody in the Bay Area who's listening to this, hire me so I can go hang out with these two.
Yeah. That'd be awesome.
Please do so.
Yeah.
All right, Jordan. It was a pleasure having you on. Hopefully we'll have you back another episode soon.
Absolutely. Happy to.
Yeah. And folks, that'll be it. We're wrapping up another episode of Now That I'm Engaged, How Do I Get Married? We'll see you next time.
Bye.
To our listeners, thank you for tuning in to another episode of Now That I'm Engaged, How Do I Get Married podcast.
Brought to you by Fantasy Sound Event Services.
I hope you enjoyed listening to this episode. Please get in touch with me or August if you have any topic you would like us to cover.
Or if you're struggling with your wedding planning, please be sure to submit a question to podcast@fantasysound.com.
I encourage you to check out our other episodes on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcast. And if you're a fan, we'd love if you would subscribe to the podcast and leave a review.
It helps others find our podcast so that they can learn from our guests too. And to everybody listening,
happy wedding planning!